Hello and welcome. Papa Bear is in your ears. Today we're going to have a somewhat short stream because I don't have a lot of time this morning. A little less time than I usually have. But we're gonna read some poetry, as I like to do, and we might do some ASMR triggers as well. Excuse me, just had to clear my throat there. So, we were, in our last stream, Papa Bear was reading Emily Dickinson. We have here a collection of Emily Dickinson's poems, and it's divided into 3 series. The first series was called Life, and we finished that in the last stream. And the second series, which we are about to start, is called Love. Valentine's Day is coming up soon, so I guess this is appropriate, though I'm honestly not much of a fan of Valentine's Day. It's a bit of a strange holiday. It's a holiday that causes many people pain for no good reason. But it makes a lot of money for chocolate makers and greeting card makers and other sorts of businesses. Okay. Maybe before I get started on the poetry, I'll just practice my ASMR triggers. I'm feeling somewhat lazy on this Saturday afternoon. I have a lot to do this weekend. I seem to have a lot to do all the time, but I only ever do a small fraction of it. But relaxation is important, and I find these streams very relaxing, so while I'm streaming, I just sort of forget about all the things I have to do temporarily. You can't forget about those things forever. But you can forget about them for a little while. Or at least not worry so much about them. Okay, let's read some poems. So, first we have a poem called Mine by Emily Dickinson. Mine by the right of the white election, mine by the royal seal, mine by the sign in the scarlet prison, bars cannot conceal. Mine here in vision and in veto, mine by the grave's repeal, titled, confirmed, delirious charter, mine while the ages steal. That one doesn't really read like a love poem, not a typical love poem. It's a bit of an uncomfy love poem. A little bit of tsundere going on there, I think. The next poem is called Bequest. You left me, sweet, two legacies. A legacy of love, a heavenly Father would content, had he the offer of. You left me the boundaries of pain, capacious as the sea, between eternity and time, your consciousness and me. Emily Dickinson poems confuse me often, but they sound nice enough. Next we have an untitled poem. Alter when the hills do, falter when the sun, question if his glory be the perfect one. Surfeit when the daffodil doth of the dew, even as herself, O friend, I will of you. The next poem is called Suspense. Elysium is as far to the very nearest room, if in that room a friend awake. Felicity or doom, what fortitude the soul contains, that it can so endure the accent of a coming foot, the opening of a door. The next poem is called Surrender. Doubt me, my dim companion, why God would be content with but a fraction of the love poured thee without a stint. The whole of me forever, what more the woman can, say quick, that I may dower thee with last delight I own. It cannot be my spirit, for that was thine before. I ceded all of dust I knew, what opulence the more. Had I a humble maiden, whose farthest of degree was that she might some distant heaven dwell timidly with the The next poem is untitled, as many of her poems are. Her poems were all published posthumously. Most of them were written in letters to her friends and acquaintances and family. She never really expected them to be published, and she was not recognized as a poet in her life. So I guess if you're just putting a poem in a letter to a friend, you don't bother giving it a title sometimes. Hello, Bumfluff87. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for the follow. So, back to this untitled poem. If you were coming in the fall, I'd brush the summer by, with half a mile and half a spurn as housewives do a fly. If I could see you in a year, I'd wind the months in balls and put them each in separate drawers until their time befalls. If only centuries delayed, I'd count them on my hand, subtracting till my fingers dropped into Van Diemen's land. If certain when this life was out that yours and mine should be, I'd toss it yonder like a rind and taste eternity. But now, all ignorant of the length of time's uncertain wing, it goads me like the goblin bee that will not state its sting. The next poem is called With a Flower. I hide myself within my flower, that wearing on your breast, you unsuspecting wear me too, and angels know the rest. I hide myself within my flower, that fading from your vase, you, unsuspecting, feel for me almost a loneliness. I'm sorry, I think I forgot to read the title of that poem. That poem was titled With a Flower by Emily Dickinson. Okay, the next poem is called Proof. Oh, I'm glad you like it. Bum or Fluff. What shall I call you? Maybe I call you 87. Okay. What did I just read? Did I just read With a Flower? Or did I just read Proof? I think I just read With a Flower. And the next poem is called Proof. That I did always love, I bring thee proof, that till I loved, I did not love enough. That I shall love alway, I offer thee that love is life and life hath immortality. This dost thou doubt, sweet, then have I nothing to show but Calvary. I sort of flubbed that one. Hello, Cookie, how are you doing? Good afternoon, I guess, for you. It's a morning for me. We are reading Love Poems by Emily Dickinson. This next one is untitled. Have you got a brook in your little heart where bashful flowers blow, and blushing birds go down to drink, and shadows tremble so, and nobody knows, so still it flows, that any brook is there, and yet your little draught of life is daily drunken there? Then look out for the little brook in March, when the rivers overflow, and the snows come hurrying from the hills, and the bridges often go. And later, in August it may be, when the meadows parching lie, beware lest this little brook of life some burning noon go dry. Her poems are never uniformly uplifting, it seems. There's always a little dark tinge to them. The next one is called Transplanted. As if some little Arctic flower upon the polar hymn went wandering down the latitudes until it puzzled came to continents of summer, to firmaments of sun, to strange bright crowds of flowers and birds of foreign tongue. I say, as if this little flower to Eden wandered in. What then? Why, nothing, only your inference therefrom. Next we have The Outlet. My river runs to thee, blue sea wilt welcome me. My river waits reply, O sea, look graciously. I'll fetch thee brooks from spotted nooks. Say, sea, take me. That's a nice little cutesy Valentine's poem. The lovers in this poem are a river flowing into the sea. Next we have quite a long poem called, you can tell how long it is by listening to my scroll wheel. This is called In Vain. I cannot live with you, it would be life, and life is over there behind the shelf. The sexton keeps the key to putting up our life, his porcelain like a cup, discarded of the housewife, quaint or broken. A newer Severus pleases, old ones crack. I could not die with you, for one must wait to shut the other's gaze down. You could not. And could I stand by and see you freeze without my right of frost, death's privilege. Nor could I rise with you because your face would put out Jesus, that new grace. Grow plain and foreign on my homesick eye, except that you than he shone closer by. They'd judge us, how, for you served heaven, you know, or sought to. I could not. Because you saturated sight, and I had no more eyes for sordid excellence as paradise. And were you lost, as I would be, though my name rang loudest on the heavenly fame, and were you saved and I condemned to be where you were not, that self were hell to me. So we must keep apart, you there, I here, with just the door ajar, that oceans are, and prayer, and that pale sustenance, despair. That was In Vain by Emily Dickinson. Next up, we have a poem called Renunciation. There came a day at summer's full, entirely for me. I thought that such were for the saints where revelations be. The sun as common went abroad, the flowers accustomed blue, as if no soul the solstice passed that maketh all things new. The time was scarce profaned by speech, the symbol of a word was needless as at sacrament the wardrobe of our Lord. Each was to each the sealed church, permitted to commune this time, lest we too awkward show at supper of the Lamb. The hours slid fast as hours will, clutched tight by greedy hands. So faces on two decks look back, bound to opposing lands. And so when all the time had failed without external sound, each bound the other's crucifix, we gave no other bond. Sufficient troth that we shall rise, deposed at length the grave, to that new marriage justified through Calvaries of love. Next up, we have a shorter poem called Love's Baptism, but I'm going to take a quick hydration break first. Alrighty. Love's Baptism by Emily Dickinson. I'm seated, I've stopped being theirs. The name they dropped upon my face, with water in the country church, is finished using now, and they can put it with my dolls, my childhood, and the string of spools I've finished threading too. Baptized before without the choice, but this time consciously of grace, unto my supremest name, called to my full, the crescent dropped. Existence's whole arc filled up with one small diadem. My second rank, too small the first, crowned crowing on my father's breast, a half-unconscious queen. But this time, adequate, erect, with will to choose or to reject. And I choose just a throne. The next poem is called Resurrection. Several of these poems have a religious theme to them, but I don't find the poems inherently religious, other than their thematic content. 'Twas a long time. Sorry, let me start that again. 'Twas a long parting, but the time for interview had come before the judgment seat of God, the last and second time. These fleshless lovers met, a heaven in a gaze, a heaven of heavens, the privilege of one another's eyes. No lifetime set on them, apparelled as the new, unborn, except they had beheld, born everlasting now. Was bridal air like this, a paradise the host, and cherubim and seraphim the most familiar guest? Next is Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a slightly nonsensical poem as far as I'm concerned. I really have no idea what it means, but I'm going to read it faithfully as I can. I'm wife. I've finished that other state. I'm czar, I'm woman now, it's safer so. How odd the girl's life looks behind this soft eclipse. I think that earth seems so to those in heaven now. This being comfort then, that other kind was pain. But why compare? I'm wife, stop there. I'm bear. Stop there. Next we have a poem called The Wife. She rose to his requirement, dropped the playthings of her life, to take the honorable work of woman and of wife. If aught she missed in her new day of amplitude or awe, or first perspective or the gold in using wore away, it lay unmentioned as the sea develops pearl and weed, but only to himself is known the fathoms they abide. Next we have a poem called Apotheosis. Come slowly, Eden, lips unused to thee. Bashful, sip thy jasmines, as the fainting bee, reaching late his flower round her chamber hums, counts his nectars, enters, and is lost in balms. That concludes the second part of this series of Emily Dickinson poems, which was called Love. The third part is called Nature. I need to check the time. It seems I have time still, so I can continue into this next part. Poems about nature. I tend to really like poems about nature. Okay, the first poem in this section is untitled. New feet within my garden go, new fingers stir the sod, a troubadour upon the elm betrays the solitude. New children play upon the green, new weary sleep below, and still the pensive spring returns, and still the punctual snow. The next poem is called Mayflower. Pink, small, and punctual, aromatic, low, covert in April, candid in May, dear to the moss, known by the knoll next to the robin, in every human soul. Bold little beauty, bedecked with thee, nature forswears antiquity. The next poem is called Why? The murmur of a bee, a witchcraft yieldeth me. If any ask me why, 'twere easier to die than tell. The red upon the hill taketh away my will. If anybody sneer, take care, for God is here. That's all. The breaking of the day addeth to my degree. If any ask me how, artist who drew me so must tell. The next poem, about nature, by Emily Dickinson, is untitled. Perhaps you'd like to buy a flower, but I could never sell. If you would like to borrow until the daffodil unties her yellow bonnet beneath the village door, until the bees from Clover Rose their hock and sherry draw, why, I will lend until just then, but not an hour more. Sorry, all this talk of flowers made me hungry for some honey all of a sudden. Luckily, I have this big pot of honey here. Keep it close all the time. The next poem just so happens to be about honey. The pedigree of honey does not concern the bee. A clover any time to him is aristocracy. I approve. That gets the Papa Bear seal of approval. The next poem by Emily Dickinson is called A Service of Song. Some keep the Sabbath going to church. I keep it staying home. With a bobolink for a chorister and an orchard for a dome. Some keep the Sabbath in surplice. I just wear my wings. And instead of tolling the bell for church, our little sexton sings. God preaches a noted clergyman, and the sermon is never long. So instead of getting to heaven at last, I'm going all along. That's a nice little poem. We are in the middle of a series of poems about nature by Emily Dickinson. And that was a very nice poem, I think, about nature. It didn't talk very much about nature directly. It sort of talked about nature relative to the unnatural activities of man. Next up, we have a poem called, this poem is called Nothing. It is untitled. The bee is not afraid of me. I know the butterfly. The pretty people in the woods receive me cordially. The brooks laugh louder when I come. The breezes madder play. Wherefore, mine eyes, thy silver mists? Wherefore, O summer's day? The next poem is called Summer's Armies. Some rainbow coming from the fair, some vision of the world cashmere I confidently see, or else a peacock's purple train, feather by feather on the plain, fritters itself away. The dreamy butterflies bestir, lethargic pools resume the whir of last year's sundered tune. From some old fortress on the sun, baronial bees march one by one in murmuring platoon. The robins stand as thick today as flakes of snow stood yesterday. On fence and roof and twig, the orchis binds her feather on, from her old lover, Don the sun, revisiting the bog. Without commander, countless still, the regiment of wood and hill in bright detachment stand. Behold, whose multitudes are these, the children of whose turbaned seas, on what Circassian land. I'm afraid this bear is not quite cultured enough to understand the references in that poem, but it was nice enough to read anyway. Next up we have a poem called The Grass. The grass so little has to do, a sphere of simple green, with only butterflies to brood and bees to entertain, and stir all day to pretty tunes the breezes fetch along, and hold the sunshine in its lap, and bow to everything, and thread the dews all night like pearls, and make itself so fine. A duchess were too common for such a noticing, and even when it dies to pass in odors so divine, has lowly spices gone to sleep, or amulets of pine, and then to dwell in sovereign barns and dream the days away. The grass so little has to do, I wish I were the hay. Next up we have another untitled poem. A little road, not made of man, enabled of the eye, accessible to thill of bee or cart of butterfly. If town it have beyond itself, 'tis that I cannot say. I only sigh, no vehicle bears me along that way. Next up, we have a poem called Summer Shower. A drop fell on the apple tree, another on the roof. A half a dozen kissed the eaves and made the gables laugh. A few went out to help the brook that went to help the sea. Myself conjectured, were they pearls, what necklaces could be. The dust replaced in hoisted roads, the birds jocose or snug. The sunshine threw his hat away, the orchard spangles hung. The breezes brought dejected lutes and bathed them in a glee. The east put out a single flag and signed the fete away. I do believe I flubbed some of the rhymes in that poem. But half the time her poems don't rhyme anyway, so I hope she will forgive me. Next poem in our scuff reading of poems by Emily Dickinson is a longer one called Psalm of the Day. A something in a summer's day as slow her flambeau burn away, which solemnizes me. A something in a summer's moon, an azure depth, a wordless tune, transcending ecstasy. And still within a summer's night, a something so transporting bright, I clap my hands to see. Then veil my too inspecting face lest such a subtle, shimmering grace flutter too far for me. The wizard fingers never rest, the purple brook within the breast still chafes its narrow bed, still rears the east her amber flag, guides still the sun along the crag, his caravan of red. Like flowers that heard the tale of dews, but never deemed the dripping prize, awaited their low brows. Or bees that thought the summer's name some rumor of delirium, no summer could for them. Or arctic creature dimly stirred by tropic hint, some traveled bird, imported to the wood. Or wind's bright signal to the ear, making that homely and severe, contented known before. The heaven unexpected came to lives that thought their worshipping a too presumptuous psalm. That was Psalm of the Day by Emily Dickinson. Next up we have a much shorter poem called The Sea of Sunset. This is the land the sunset washes. These are the banks of the yellow sea. Where it rose or whither it rushes, these are the western mystery. Night after night, her purple traffic strews the landing with opal bales. Merchantmen poise upon horizons, dip and vanish with fairy sails. Sorry for the scuff, once again flubbing the rhymes. No honey for me. Next up we have Purple Clover. There is a flower that bees prefer and butterflies desire. To gain the purple democrat the hummingbirds aspire. And whatsoever insect pass, a honey bears away, proportioned to his several dearth and her capacity. Her face is rounder than the moon, and ruddier than the gown of orchis in the pasture, or rhododendron worn. She doth not wait for June before the world is green, her sturdy little countenance against the wind is seen. Contending with the grass, near kinsman to herself, for privilege of sod and sun, sweet litigants for life. And when the hills are full and newer fashions blow, doth not retract a single spice for pang of jealousy. Her public is the noon, her providence the sun, her progress by the bee proclaimed in sovereign swerveless tune. The bravest of the host, surrendering the last, nor even of defeat aware, when cancelled by the frost. That was Purple Clover by Emily Dickinson. Next up we have one of Papa Bear's favorite of nature's creatures, a poem titled The Bee. Like trains of cars on tracks of plush, I hear the level bee. Ajar across the flower goes, their velvet masonry, withstands until the sweet assault their chivalry consumes, while he, victorious, tilts away to vanquish other blooms. His feet are shod with gauze, his helmet is of gold, his breast a single onyx, with chrysoprase inlaid. His labors a chant, his idleness a tune. Oh, for a bee's experience of clovers and of noon. More honey, I think. Next up we have another untitled poem by Emily Dickinson in this series of nature poems. Presentiment is that long shadow on the lawn, indicative that suns go down, the notice to the startled grass that darkness is about to pass. The next poem is also untitled. Sorry for the motor noises outside, especially since we are reading nature poems. The sound of a car is a little incongruous. Okay. As children bid the guest good night, and then reluctant turn, my flowers raise their pretty lips, then put their nightgowns on. As children caper when they wake, merry that it is morn, my flowers from 100 cribs will peek and prance again. Angels in the early morning may be seen the dews among, stooping, plucking, smiling, flying, to the buds to them belong. Angels when the sun is hottest may be seen the sands among, stooping, plucking, sighing, flying, parched the flowers they bear along. The next poem is also untitled, as are so many of Emily Dickinson's poems. So bashful when I spied her, so pretty, so ashamed, so hidden in her leaflets, lest anybody find. So breathless till I passed her, so helpless when I turned and bore her, struggling, blushing, her simple haunts beyond. For whom I robbed the dingle, for whom I betrayed the dell. Many will doubtless ask me, but I shall never tell. That's a fun little poem, I think. Next we have a poem called Two Worlds. It makes no difference abroad, the seasons fit the same. The mornings blossom into noons and spit their pods of flame. Wildflowers kindle in the woods, the brooks brag all day. No blackbird baits his jargoning for passing Calvary. Auto da fe and judgment are nothing to the bee. His separation from his rose to him seems misery. Next we have the mountain. The mountain sat upon the plain in his eternal chair, his observation omnifold, his inquest everywhere. The seasons prayed around his knees, like children round a sire. Grandfather of the days is he, of dawn, the ancestor. I think Papa Bear likes that one. A poem about a mountain personified. Excuse me a moment while I hydrate and clear my throat. Okay. Where were we? We were reading poems by Emily Dickinson about nature. The next poem is called A Day. I'll tell you how the sun rose, a ribbon at a time. The steeples swam in amethyst. The news like squirrels ran. The hills untied their bonnets, the bobolinks begun. Then I said softly to myself, that must have been the sun. But how he set I know not. There seemed a purple stile, which yellow boys and girls were climbing all the while, till when they reached the other side, a dominie in grey put gently up the evening bars and led the flock away. Very nice. That one also gets the Papa Bear seal of approval. That was A Day by Emily Dickinson. Next up, we have a poem with no title, but also in the series of nature poems by Emily Dickinson. The butterfly's assumption gown in chrysoprase apartment hung, this afternoon put on. How condescending to descend and be of buttercups the friend in a New England town. Next up, we have a poem called The Wind. The wind. Do you hear it? Okay, The Wind by Emily Dickinson. Of all the sounds dispatched abroad, there's not a charge to me, like that old measure in the boughs, that phraseless melody. The wind does, working like a hand, whose fingers brush the sky, then quiver down with tufts of tune, permitted gods and me. When winds go round and round in bands and thrum upon the door, and birds take places overhead to bear them orchestra, I carve him grace of summer boughs, if such an outcast be. He never heard that fleshless chant rise solemn in the tree, as if some caravan of sound on deserts in the sky had broken rank, then knit and passed in seamless company. That was The Wind by Emily Dickinson. Sorry, that wind was a bit loud, huh? Papa Bear apologizes to your ears for that. The next poem is called Death and Life. Apparently, with no surprise to any happy flower, the frost beheads it at its play in accidental power. The blonde assassin passes on, the sun proceeds unmoved, to measure off another day for an approving God. That one is dark. I'm going to read that one again. That one is called Death and Life. Apparently, with no surprise to any happy flower, the frost beheads it at its play in accidental power. The blonde assassin passes on, the sun proceeds unmoved, to measure off another day for an approving God. Yes. Okay, the next poem is untitled. It was later when the summer went than when the cricket came, and yet we knew that gentle clock meant naught but going home. 'Twas sooner when the cricket went than when the winter came, yet that pathetic pendulum keeps esoteric time. Next up, we have a poem called Indian Summer. Before I read this poem, I should make a comment on this idiom, Indian Summer. It is, of course, quite disrespectful to the Native Americans. Emily Dickinson lived more than 100 years ago, and I think, frankly, disrespecting the Native Americans was simply normal at that time, which is no excuse, but it is an explanation. So setting aside the title, I think the poem itself is offensive to no one and is certainly worth reading. These are the days when birds come back, a very few, a bird or two, to take a backward look. These are the days when skies put on the old sophistries of June, a blue and gold mistake. O fraud that cannot cheat the bee, almost thy plausibility induces my belief. Till ranks of seeds their witness bear, and softly through the altered air hurries a timid leaf. O sacrament of summer days, O last communion in the haze, permit a child to join, thy sacred emblems to partake, thy consecrated bread to break, taste thine immortal wine. Excuse me, just have to clear my throat a moment. I've been reading poems of Emily Dickinson now for a bit over an hour. And a voice this rich and lovely comes at some price. So I will probably need to take a break from streaming in a little bit, but for now I'm still doing okay. Moving on to the next poem in this collection of nature poems by Emily Dickinson, we have Autumn. The morns are meeker than they were, the nuts are getting brown, the berry's cheek is plumper, the rose is out of town. The maple wears a grayer scarf, the field a scarlet gown. Lest I should be old-fashioned, I'll put a trinket on. Next up we have a short poem called Beclouded. The sky is low, the clouds are mean. A traveling flake of snow across a barn or through a rut debates if it will go. A narrow wind complains all day how someone treated him. Nature, like us, is sometimes caught without her diadem. Next up we have a poem called The Hemlock. I think the hemlock likes to stand upon a marge of snow. It suits his own austerity and satisfies an awe that men must slake in wilderness or in the desert cloy, an instinct for the hoar, the bald, Lapland's necessity. The hemlock's nature thrives on cold. The gnash of northern winds, his sweetest nutriment to him, his best Norwegian wines. To satin races he is naught but children on the dawn. Beneath his tabernacles play, and Dnieper wrestlers run. I honestly have no idea what that means. Papa Bear has a small brain, but he likes pretty words. Okay, next up, another untitled poem. There's a certain slant of light on winter afternoons that oppresses like the weight of cathedral tunes. Heavenly hurt it gives us. We can find no scar, but internal difference where the meanings are. None may teach it anything. 'Tis the sealed despair, an imperial affliction sent us of the air. When it comes, the landscape listens, shadows hold their breath. When it goes, 'tis like the distance on the look of death. Okay, that concludes the third part of this collection of poems by Emily Dickinson. That one was called Nature. And when I began this collection, I expected there to be only 3 parts because the title of the collection is, I believe, Poems in 3 Series, complete by Emily Dickinson. But apparently 3 Series refers to something else, because here we are at the 4th section, which has the rather serious title, Time and Eternity. I think, though, my time this morning is just about up. So before beginning a weighty and serious series of poems called Time and Eternity, I will recognize the finite nature of my own time, and I will end the stream here. I might, maybe, do a slightly cringe raid if there's somebody else streaming without a lot of people. But I think there's not. I could stream, I could raid somebody with 84 viewers, but that just feels a bit embarrassing, so I won't. So I will simply say goodbye for now. I do expect I will have some more time this afternoon I'm not sure if I will spend that time reading poetry or maybe doing some epic gaming or possibly doing my taxes. Even bears have taxes. One of the two inescapable things in life, death and taxes, even for the poor bears. So I hope you enjoyed this collection of Emily Dickinson poems. I think we made quite a lot of progress. There are quite a lot more Emily Dickinson poems to read. She wrote a lot of poems in her life. It appears that we are perhaps less than a quarter of the way through right now. But I'm looking forward to continuing this series in other streams. For now, Papa Bear takes his leave. I hope you stay comfy and carry the peace and relaxation of this stream with you throughout your day or your evening or your night. Goodbye.